Grief and loss are something every person goes through at some point in their life. Yes, even immortal plague doctors like myself. Most of you may know, but for those who don't, grief is the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually the death of a beloved person. However, not everyone can move through the 5 stages of grief as fast as others. Some people, like myself, speed run the stages without trying. Others are never able to move on. Nobody likes to talk about death or even wants to think about it. But unlike most things, death is the only constant in the universe, and something every single person on this planet has in common. One thing that some people do to help with the grieving process is use some form of distraction. This is known as escapism. Escapism can be used very positively as a coping mechanism when used in small amounts. It's like drinking alcohol. Having a few drinks every now and again doesn't make you an alcoholic, but living your life by the bottle does. We all use escapism in some way or another, like playing video games, making YouTube videos, reading books, or even just playing pretend. Escapism is a common tool we have all used to cope with grief, to put our minds in a place where we can't be weighed down by negative emotions. In moderation, it can help us work through tough times in a constructive manner. For example, I play video games after a long day at work to help me relax. However, with every positive, there is also a negative. Sometimes our castle walls can become a prison fence, trapping us within our own tower like a princess waiting for a knight in shining armor. To ignore reality completely can be detrimental. It is very important to accept that something has happened. Loss is something that is very difficult. We all lose people because of death. There's not much that can be done. So with the new year already ongoing and many deaths to come, let's talk about a show in memory of my best friend, and a show I believe to be one of KyoAni's top 5 anime. Love, Chuunibyou, and Other Delusions.
Yuta Togashi is a boy who, during junior high school, suffered from Chuunibyou, a term used to describe children who hold exaggerated or fantastical beliefs about themselves, very often associated with the behavior during puberty. Yuta believes that he was possessed by the Dark Flame Master, therefore alienating himself from his classmates. Finding his past embarrassing, Yuta attempts to start off high school free from his old delusions. This proves to be difficult, however, as a delusional girl in his class, Rika Takanashi, learns of Yuta's past and becomes increasingly interested in him.
He helps Rika with a number of things, including founding and maintaining her club and tutoring her. When Yuta joins Rika on summer vacation, Yuta learns that 2 years prior, Rika's father, to whom she was very close, died unexpectedly due to a terminal illness, causing her to fall into her delusions. After learning this, Yuta agrees to help Rika search for the Fukashi Kiyokase, or the invisible boundary. Season 1 of this show was very interesting and was a very nice change of pace for me. There is just a lot this show does right. The comedy is perfectly paced. The serious moments draw you in. I was sitting on the edge of my seat during the finale, watching Rika reach the point of acceptance of her father's passing. This scene was really touching, really well made. It brought tears to my eyes. This show does very well at showing a child going through a traumatic experience and how she managed to cope with it all. Dealing with the loss of a loved one is a really hard thing. It can leave us feeling alone, isolated, because other people are able to move on with ease. We witness Rika go through these emotions and see how she is affected by this. As Yuta put in his speech to Toka, just telling someone to just move on, just grow up, doesn't work the way we think it does. Rika may know the truth, but unfortunately, that is not how grief works. One thing I took away from this speech was that just because you hear the term deal with it or grow up, move on, does not mean you can. It's not like you can just press a button and everything becomes sunshines and rainbows. Life is not that simple. Dealing with grief is painful. A lot of adults, including myself, have trouble understanding that. I am very stoic myself. So when I lose someone, I am usually fine a couple of days later because I speed run the stages of grief. But upon fully trying to understand this topic for the video, I learned that just because I am a certain way doesn't mean I am wrong, and I should not look down on someone else who may be struggling. Everyone heals and grows at their own rate. Some people may think I'm heartless for moving through stuff too fast. Others will look down on those who take too long. It's a double-edged sword that you just have to slowly accept. Everyone grows up. Everyone moves on differently. I'd like to believe that if Toka and the rest of Rika's family would just sit down and talk with her, instead of telling her to just move on, it would help the issue. Communication is key in moments like these. I doubt I would have been able to just move on if this happened to me as a kid. Then again, I have also just told people to just move on, so I'm no better than Rika's family. We clearly see that Rika doesn't know how to deal with these emotions. She instead uses escapism or Chuunibyou to help cope with a reality she's not ready to accept. After all, her catchphrase is,
reality rejected, synapses shattered, be banished from this world!
No one takes the time to sit and talk with her other than Yuta. Everyone else only sees her as a child who refuses to grow up. A child lost in Chuunibyou. A child lost in delusion. I learned a lot from this 3-minute speech, as it cut very deep for me, making me realize I have been wrong in the past for some things I have told others. I believe this helps hammer in my point that why some people are able to move on with ease, others can't, and that's okay. I know many people who rely too much on vices just to get through the grueling day. We may use escapism in small amounts, but we know that we will still have to face tomorrow. Just because someone can easily move on does not mean we should expect everyone else to be the same way. Everyone needs time to move through the stages of grief, and some have interesting ways of doing it. Sometimes all you need to help is for someone to reach out a hand and give you a shoulder to cry on. We see this with Yuta, reaching out to help Rika when no one else would, and that is what led to them forming one of my favorite relationships in all of anime. With that, I believe we have reached the end of the lesson. There is much more that could be said, but I am far, far from qualified to dive that deep. My final thoughts on this show, upon re-evaluation, is it is a solid 9 out of 10. The show not only shows us a great look at someone going through the stages of grief, it can also teach us a lot about ourselves. The show was just fantastic, and I don't know many other shows that deal with a topic like this quite so well. As I mentioned earlier, the comedy and the serious moments are so well made that I could not get enough of this show. I believe more people need to watch it and see if they can pick up on some of the other messages. There is still plenty more in this show should cover at some point. I mean, I've still not talked about season 2 or the movie. However, I did not want to overbloat this video. I mean, it's already really long as it is, so if this video does well enough, I may talk about the other stuff eventually. Who am I kidding? I'll probably do it anyway. I mean, I did buy this very, very nice Blu-ray set, so yeah. With all that said, I'm Professor Plague, and as a wise man once said, I shall grieve and I shall weep, but I shall never regret.